Hello and welcome to this video where we are going to be covering slimming clubs and point systems. So, slimming clubs. Now, I'm not going to badmouth them at all, but my aim is to educate and explain why necessarily they don't work long term. So, their aim is to provide an easier way of following a calorie controlled diet. It's to save you time, make it easier to understand complicated calories and macronutrients, to sell their product, and to keep you hooked on their system. Now, the actual outcome of this is there's no long term education, there's no alternative way of handling your diet. It only gives you short term results with a high percentage of yo yoing, creates an extremely bad relationship with food, and you regress as soon as you stop their system. One of my particular pet peeves is the language that they use. So they instantly map out good and bad foods. They vilify certain foods by putting them in certain categories, and they claim that you can eat as much as you want of certain foods. Now, already this is alarm bells ringing, because if you're saying that you can eat as much as you want of certain foods with no repercussions, then that's already putting somebody at an instant disadvantage. Now they refer to eating so like there's carbohydrates in there, for example, I think potatoes and pasta. If you eat as much of that as you want, I mean, what do you think the outcome is going to be if there's no way of quantifying anything? You could be eating the best diet ever, and you're full of really, really good one ingredient whole foods, all organic, like the best ingredients known to man, but you're eating too much of it. So you put on weight because it is that simple. Your body doesn't differentiate between good and bad food. It's just energy at the end of the day. So if your body isn't burning, or if you're not burning the amount of calories that is negating the calories that you're eating, then you're going to put on weight. It's as simple as that. So telling somebody that they can eat as much of certain foods as they want is it's just totally backwards. And as well as like instantly mapping out good and bad foods, so they put them into certain categories. And again, I don't think I can mention any of the actual names that they put them into, but foods shouldn't be put into categories based on anything really. Like there's no reason to put foods into categories. Food is food at the end of the day. So what we should actually be paying attention to is how food makes you feel. So for example, in a positive manner, it should make you feel full but content, not too full that you're lying about and can't get back up again. It should make you feel energetic, and you should feel like you should be able to do something within 5 or 10 minutes afterwards and not feel like you have to go and have a lie down. So looking at it in a negative perspective, if you're looking at foods that are making you feel a certain way in terms of being detrimental, this is what I want you to pay attention to. So if they feel you're leaving bloated, lethargic, gassy, give you indigestion or heartburn, these are not foods that are going to agree with you. Now, I'm not going to say pull them out of your diet at all, but it's something to be aware of, because if you are bloating, if you feel lethargic, if you're gassy, if you get indigestion, if you get heartburn, there's a reason for that. So this is where you're going to have to delve deeper down into like keeping a food diary and writing down specific foods that make you feel a certain way, and then from there we can maybe see if there's a pattern emerging from if it's a certain type of food all the time. So, for example, if it was chocolate, yogurt, and tea. Now, I would be looking at that going, right, okay, what's the constant ingredient in all those three? It would be milk. So is it milk or is it lactose? Now, again, this is going down a really complicated road, but if you can do as much as you can to narrow down the foods that make you feel, if there's none, perfect, but if there is any foods that do make you feel um, bloated, lethargic, gassy, give you indigestion or heartburn, then this is something to pay attention to, because your body is having some form of reaction to that food, which is leaving you feeling sluggish or bloated or whatever. So we want to make a note of that and just keep that handy so that we can maybe either limit the amount of times that you have that food in your diet, or if you feel really bad with it, you remove it. And if you have a beneficial effect from it, then you keep it out of your diet for a while and then maybe put it back in once you feel that you want to put it back in. If it still gives you a negative effect, then you just keep it out because it's obviously not agreeing with you in some way. So there are no so there are no good or bad foods. Now, this is the absolute main point that I want to emphasize: is food is food. There is no good food, there is no bad food. You've got high quality ingredients and you've got low quality ingredients. And your aim is to have a varied, colourful diet as much of the time as possible, and don't be scared to include everything into your diet as long as it's accounted for. So this is where you just apply moderation. If you're smashing out loads of junk food, crisps, sweets, chocolate, whatever, fizzy juice, full sugar fizzy juice, and you're not having any fruit, vegetables, um, you're not getting any proper nutrition, no fibre, hydration's poor, then obviously we need to just reverse that balance and tip it in the other end of the scale. But it doesn't mean that you have to cut any foods out of your diet unnecessarily, and you don't have to vilify them by saying that, oh no, I can't have that because that's a bad food. Like, so during the 80s, 90s, it was fat that was getting the rap, and then carbs started getting it as well. Or like, oh, can't have carbs, too many carbs puts on weight. Or during the 80s and 90s, it was low fat everything. Everybody was eating low fat, and fat was bad for you. But now the research has come out to say that actually fat's really good for you, and carbs are kind of still getting it, not so much now. But everybody's going on about keto diets and low carbs, and but this is like long term diets that they're talking about, and you're like, why are you telling so many people that these foods are bad for you when they're absolutely not? And there is no one food that puts on weight. Too many calories puts on weight. So you could have a diet that is absolutely just so chicken, and again, I'm just using that example, but chicken, rice, and broccoli. So three really good ingredients, but if you're eating too much of them, then that is going to make you put on weight. So that is what we that is the main crux of the argument. You could have a diet of pizza and ice cream, but if you're eating the right amounts and you're not going over your calorie amount, then fine. A guy actually done that to just prove a point. A guy got in absolutely cracking condition, and I think he just ate pizza and Ben and Jerry's ice cream, and he done it just to make a point that it doesn't. Now, obviously, he might not have felt great. Well, probably actually didn't feel great at all because the quality of ingredients he was putting in his body weren't the best. But he done it to prove a point that it is just an energy balance. That once you strike that balance, that's you're away. So the main take-home points from this video should be: there are no good or bad foods. Do not vilify foods. There is not one food that will make you gain weight more than another. And don't put that strain on yourself about trying to eliminate foods unnecessarily from your diet when you absolutely don't need to. What we're trying to be as inclusive as we can be in our diet and get as many different foods in there as possible and not labeling any good or bad. All right, so we have covered point systems and slimming clubs. I will see you in the next video.